Our first focus tonight is about South Asia. What constitutes of blasphemy in Pakistan? Well, a 30-year-old man is sentenced to death by a Pakistani court. The reason? He made a remark on a social networking site against Prophet Muhammad, allegedly, his wives and companions. Well, in a country that is known to be intolerant towards blasphemy, this is a first. The man in question is Taimur Raza. He's the first person to be sentenced to death in a case involving social media. So what exactly makes blasphemy in Pakistan? What are the reasons? Well, the definition and the punishment has now evolved over time. Let's take a look at some of the history. Back in 1947, blasphemy carried a maximum punishment of 10 years. It was criminal to disturb religious assemblies, insult beliefs, and defile objects of worship. Fast forward to 1980. Derogatory remarks against Islamic personnel and persecution forced criminal charges. 1982 next. Life term for willful desecration of the Quran. 1986, the blasphemy against Prophet Muhammad is punishable by death. Well, here's what exactly makes the cases of Taimur Raza curious and unusual. It is an unusual case. An anti-terrorism court in the area of Bahawalpur sentenced Raza to death. Raza fell in this category because his charge sheet included counter-terrorism offenses linked to hate speech. The decision to award the death sentence to him just after a year since he was caught. Well, Taimur Raza is the first case of the death sentence for a social media post. Pakistan has generally been intolerant towards blasphemy in the country. Here's a report on a similar incident.
Images that shook a nation and shocked the world. The lynching of journalism student Mashal Khan in Pakistan's Mardan University reignited questions on the country's draconian blasphemy law. The Pakistan National Assembly passed a unanimous resolution denouncing the killing and asking the provincial government to take strict action against the perpetrators. They've called for the imposition of strong safeguards to prevent the abuse of the blasphemy law by mobs. Pakistan has a fraught history with the blasphemy law. In 2011, Punjab Governor Salman Taseer, a prominent critic of the law, was assassinated by his bodyguard. Many hailed the killer as a hero. The same year, Pakistan's Minister of Minorities, Shahbaz Bhatti, was murdered for his opposition to the law. Inherited from the British, the blasphemy law has become stronger over decades. In 1947, blasphemy carried a maximum punishment of 10 years. It was criminal to disturb religious assemblies, insult beliefs, and defile objects of worship. In 1980, derogatory remarks against Islamic personages were regarded as criminal. In 1982, it was life term for the willful desecration of the Quran under the law. In 1986, blasphemy against the Prophet Muhammad was punishable by death. According to Pakistan's National Commission for Justice and Peace, more than 1,200 people have been accused under various clauses of the blasphemy law in the past 3 decades. And the debate for amending it has been a matter of dispute among political and religious circles. Does the National Assembly resolution signal change? Bureau Report, WION.
All right, to get perspective on this story, we're joined by Shamila Khan, a digital rights activist from Lahore in Pakistan. Shamila, thanks for joining us. First question to you. Why is Pakistan so strict when it comes to blasphemy, specifically this case about social media?
I think it has a particular history. It's grounded in the, obviously it's a colonial law, but it emerged within a particular context where extremism was rising, where intolerance towards other religious beliefs in the 80s was rising. And it was there where when the state solidified these attitudes into law, it became very difficult for it to be repealed further on, and it also encouraged and sort of mandated an intolerance towards towards religious criticism and of minority beliefs. And this has now led to a situation where both the state and society are sort of working in tandem to encourage religious intolerance. And but I do believe it is the fact that it is state mandated, it's grounded in law, is what makes it so dangerous. And the fact that it's backed by, at times, by vigilante violence further feeds into the state's sort of inability to do anything about it. Political will, it sometimes does emerge in sort of after incidents such as Mashal Khan's murder, but it's not something that it doesn't seem politically feasible for a lot of governments to actually do something about it. So yeah, it just keeps on perpetuating itself.
Shama, let me also ask you a follow-up question. Why has it evolved over the years? 1947, it was about 10 years in prison, and then it was criminal in 1980, and now death sentence. I mean, it certainly seems harsh. Of course, social media didn't exist back then, so of course you can't really pinpoint that. But when it comes to the severeness, the strictness, is this all over the, is it really because social media has taken such a huge stride over the last decade or so?
I think social media for the past 2 years was emerging as the next frontier that the state wanted to regulate. With the passage of the Prevention of Electronic Crimes Act in 2016, the fact that it carried harsh sentences up to 13 years sort of gave other institutions within the state a blank check to go after online criticism, online activity as well. Although this particular unfortunate case is not does not come under the act, but there have been actions by the state by cracking down on political opponents who are active online. It's all part of a trend that inevitably culminated in something like this. It doesn't come as a surprise because it's not in isolation. It's just a progression in degrees.
Shamla, also specifically about this case, Taimur Raza, what makes it so special there? How is this being reported in the Pakistani media? How is all of this being played out there locally with regard to this? Is this perhaps a way to set a precedent to make sure that, there aren't other cases of blasphemy and, talk about how severe it is? The fact that if someone is going to insult Prophet Muhammad, his wives and companions allegedly, that the country is not going to back down. They're going to set a strong statement out there, perhaps to thwart future such attackers.
Yeah, so this case comes as a particular blow because there was a momentum emerging after Mashal Khan's unfortunate sort of killing, because a lot of political parties for the first time were openly talking about some critique of these laws, and they were talking about some sort of reform or some sort of actually at least implementation or procedural amendment that might make the application of the laws more fair. But this comes as a particular blow because of that, because it's both the incidents were grounded in social media, and both of them and the fact that this is the victim in this particular case was someone who came from a minority sect is also a blow, because it's minorities are particularly vulnerable at this time, and it sort of sends a chilling effect. Has a chilling effect on online speech in general, and a lot of people that we are now speaking to are watching what they say online. Even religious debate or sort of healthy criticism of, or even just exchange of ideas, people are starting to think twice before posting something.
All right, we're going to continue the conversation in just a moment, but Pakistan's record of blasphemy is horrific, as it is shocking. Take a look. In 2011, Punjab's Governor Salman Taseer, a known critic of blasphemy laws, was in fact assassinated. A month later, religious minorities minister Shahbaz Bhatti, a Christian who spoke out against the laws, was shot dead in Islamabad. In 1997, a retired High Court judge who acquitted 2 Christians of blasphemy charges was murdered in his office. In 2014, a lawyer was shot dead in the city of Multan after agreeing to defend a man charged with blasphemy. So certainly this is not the first time, maybe the first time when it comes to social media. Let's go back to Shamala Khan joining us from Lahore in Pakistan. Shamala, there was also situations drawing the big picture, not just in Pakistan, but, even outside, in China, where social media is very infringed upon who can really use sites like Facebook and Twitter, that the government is monitoring that. Is there a sense of fear, perhaps, by certain people posting, statements, posting things on social media platforms, given how strict Pakistan is, in your opinion? What's the mood like?
Yeah, that's something that it's kick-started a conversation about what is appropriate to say online. Electronic media was previously heavily regulated. PEMRA, the authority in charge of electronic media, was made sure that mainstream media did not carry the same type of criticism or the same kind of debates that social media had. So this was, in a way, a place where a lot of people could say things that weren't being said in mainstream media. But now, definitely, there is the fact that some social media activists were also abducted a few months ago. That also set up has led to a lot of social self-censorship on many people's part. And we have at Digital Rights Foundation, we have a helpline, and we get a lot of calls now in wake of the new sort of realities, where people sort of ask us, is this okay to say online? What kind of things will get us in trouble? So just the fact that people are watching what they say, self-censoring, is a huge blow to freedom of expression.
Shamala, we were reading reports that Raza is a member of the Shiite minority there. Is it really just the minorities who are impacted by this, or is this something faced by all sorts of groups, not just the Muslim minority, but certainly some of the ones that we saw earlier, Christians, perhaps Hindus, other groups as well, minorities in Pakistan? Are they more under the scrutiny when it comes to some of these blasphemy regulations, or is it anybody who speaks out against Islam or Pakistan?
Yeah, so minorities, there has been a lot of research done, and a disproportionate amount of minority groups do get implicated by the law. But it is a law that is used to settle scores, to sort of trumped up charges of religious intolerance or hate speech are then used to settle sort of property disputes or various other things. So while minorities are more vulnerable to it, because I think it's easier to make that accusation. It might fly with the authorities better if it's against someone from a minority group. But as your report also just said, even sort of influential leaders within Pakistan, lawyers who don't belong to minority groups, or in the case of Salman Taseer, who was a governor of the biggest province in Pakistan, they also become vulnerable. So I think anybody who posits any sort of progressive views can also be sort of implicated under the law.
And lastly, Shamala, I also wanted to ask you, very similarly in Bangladesh, there have been all of those situations, incidences of many of those bloggers who were perhaps atheists, who spoke out against Islam, who were attacked, who were killed. So it's not just perhaps in Pakistan where there's this kind of scrutiny, even across the border here in India and Bangladesh, dealing with something similar. I mean, it really goes and talks about the freedom of religion, expressing your opinions. And of course, now with the day and age of Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever the platform is, it becomes much easier for people to express their opinions, but unfortunately, does that come at a price? Where do you draw the line between freedom of religion and freedom of speech? It seems like in certain countries, both Bangladesh and Pakistan at least, there is a little bit more scrutiny when it comes to government authorities or the court that really monitor and scrutinize those posts, which technically are public, but restricting your freedom of speech.
Yeah, I completely agree. It is becoming, it's becoming actually much more easy to fake accounts, to even levy accusations that are not true, as we saw in the case of Mashal Khan, where fake accounts were made that led to the sort of mob that outside his hostel. So I think it's becoming much easier. It's also much more instantaneous. with this, and it's raising some important questions about what constitutes speech. Even there was a case where where that is currently happening in Pakistan, where the main legal question is whether liking a post can be construed as hate speech or something that can be criminalized. So these are very sort of interesting and at times terrifying questions that we now have to deal with. The thing to remember here is that sometimes the lower courts are much more conservative in their in the sentences that they pass, and as we've seen, a lot of cases, high-profile cases, have gone to the Supreme Court, and there have been acquittals in this case, and there's been a trend where the higher courts have become much more willing to acquit people in such cases. So hopefully, as this case progresses through the court system,
right,
there might be a correction in place. But yeah, I completely agree. This is a regional trend, and it's not isolated just in Pakistan. And as we saw in Bangladesh, we sort of, I think, see a mirror in Bangladesh sometimes, especially as digital rights activists. That's something that we fear.
All right, Shamila Khan getting us the very latest perspective there from Pakistan. Thank you so much for joining us here on WION.